Welcome back to Love is Kimes. David, I'd like to propose a toast to family, to faith, to Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
Oh my God, Taco Bell. For the podcast audience, because we now have a podcast audience, by the way. You might be listening to this in audio form. You might be watching on YouTube. We are now back to our regular schedule where both will drop at the same time. I was raising my Love is Blind chalice to a story that I have been dying to discuss with someone, which is, of course, the cliffhanger that episode 6 ended on. So, as always, David, we're going to recap this show. We're doing 4 through 6 today via relationship. And then we're going to do power rankings. We're going to do today, or it's a little bit early for this, but we do have to do an internet research section, internet gossip section.
Yes.
And then we'll do the will they or won't they say I do. But I wasn't planning on starting with Daniel and Taylor, who in the first batch of episodes I described as boring, but I feel like we have to start here.
Yeah, so I like throughout the whole entire thing, I was like, why isn't this couple on the cutting room floor? I was just like, everything was boring. I was like, why are we talking about them? Why are we spending much airtime with them? This feels like one of the couples that like you see in the reunion. They're like, yeah, we got married and we had a wonderful time. And I just didn't understand why we were talking about them. Lo and behold, they become the stars of the show by the end of episode 6.
I do want to discuss this chronologically because I think there's a lot of things that you go back and you watch. By the way, I called this. Start there. I called this because they, at the very beginning of the season, they had audio saying that. Oh no! At first I thought it was Virginia. Anyways, whatever. I always forget what I've revealed here versus in our text. So I do want to go back and do it chronologically, but I feel like we just have to start with the cliffhanger. Yeah, because it is so massive. He's lying. He obviously followed her. I don't believe it. Okay. God, where to even begin? What do you think?
Okay, so all right. I believe I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle here. So I think it's possible he followed her. I need
the male perspective here because I know. Yes, this is why it's so important we have this conversation because guys do hit follow a lot.
Yeah, I think it's possible he followed her, and then like unfollowed her, and I don't think he knew in the pods that this is who he was talking to. This is where I do not think he was in the pods because like, okay, here's what I'm going to take the total opposite look here. I think she was like, I think this dude may have followed me. I'm not sure if I like this guy.
Oh yeah, 100%.
This may be like my out. Like this may be the out here on this thing. I'm not sure he was like, because this is the thing. She was like, he saw my Instagram. He knows I like Taco Bell and family. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, he didn't really reveal any, he didn't say anything to me that felt like I did deep research and I know her spirit. He wasn't like, my favorite song is like New Edition, blah, blah, blah. Like she's like, me too. They didn't have like that moment. I don't recall having that sort of moment where it felt like they were connected based on information he got on Instagram.
I don't think so either. I don't think this is like a total creepy stalker scenario where like he like, singled her out and tried to use this prior knowledge to sort of Pygmalion his way into her heart or whatever. And by the way, I completely agree that this would be a non-story if she was attracted to him.
Yes, absolutely.
This is 100% a thing because she was looking for an out. We can go back to their meetup. She was clearly not feeling it. That said, the way he reacted to the confrontation with I know a liar when I see a liar. Come on. So she's like, listen, I think you followed me. I remember seeing this account. It had a picture of like a guy holding a drink with Christmas stuff. And he's like, I had the picture, but I'm not holding the drink in the photo. In fact,
the fireplace is not a Christmas tree. It's like
I think that he absolutely followed her and unfollowed her. Baseline. It happened.
Yes.
Because also, like women, we have a very good memory for this kind of detail. Like, I maybe not to make it a gender thing, maybe men do too. I also think at some point he probably thought maybe this girl.
Yeah.
So that is the degree of grace I will give him is that I don't think he maybe knew for a guarantee. I don't think he was stalking her. I don't think anything like that.
This isn't full catfish. Like this isn't full catfish.
No.
Like Christopher Nolan movie cliffhanger thing.
I will
Shout
say
out to
also, David, and we're going to get to this when we get to internet research. It seems like the Minnesota dating pool is very small and incestuous. So
yes,
like
yes.
everybody knows everybody's business. Okay, let's go back actually and get to how he got here. So because they there's really not a lot to talk about with this relationship. It's boring. Like it's a lot of like.
Yeah.
He did say something lovely, like if you leave, I'll come find you. She talks about her dad. You know, he's potentially terminally ill. There's more Christmas crap. I mean, he gives her a stocking. She gives him an ornament. These people love Christmas, man. She asks him for his biggest insecurity, and he doesn't say it's being short.
Yeah.
He says it's that he was short and then grew.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Maybe he just wasn't trying to reveal what he looks like. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm not holding that against him. I just think like it is important context here.
Producer Brian brings up a good point. Literally everyone at some point in their life was short. And
I was like, how short was he, man? She asks him if he follows her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah. I don't know, man.
And then he says he has a weird memory where he always remembers Instagram handles and stuff, which is important because then he's like, oh, maybe I don't follow you.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
What did you make of their meetup?
I thought she wasn't into it. And she said, I mean, and what was unfortunate about it was she said the thing that like he'd been worried about. That was the thing that made me kind of like sad about it. Was she was like, yeah, he's kind of my type. And she was like, he's a little shorter than what I like. And I was like, I feel real bad for him because that's like his biggest fear, right? That is his like biggest problem. But even still, I just kind of was like, you know, boring couple. Like it'll be fine. Like she'll, you know, like they can work through it or not. Like I just was not invested in them until we got to this thing, and then you start putting the pieces together. And but I just felt like I'm with you. She sees a hot dude. She thinks he's attractive. She's like, oh, maybe she's like, they meet. She's like, did you follow me on Instagram at some point? He's like, oh, maybe I didn't know. Who knows? She's like, that's such a weird coincidence. Let's go be hot together on the beach. And then that's the end of the story.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. She did she said the thing that is love is blind code for I'm not attracted to them, which is I'm having trouble putting the voice and the face together. It really is. Okay, so that's all really that happened. There was a cruel shot where he talks about his socks.
Yeah,
because I guess they got each other socks, and they did a cruel shot where it shows his feet dangling on the sock. Yeah. So in the moment, she wasn't mean, and it wasn't like an arena thing where she was cruel.
I felt like they could work past it. Like it did feel like a thing where it was like they could move past her like issues with him being short. I didn't think it was a deal breaker in the way that other meetups have been.
So the 24 hours later, in the hotel, it's like a Hampton Inn or something.
Right. I was like, what are y'all doing? Are y'all making waffles in there first? Like, what's going on? I was like, where are y'all putting these people at?
I love how it goes from like the pods. It's so like, you know, it's like really well lit and it's like really bright. And all of a sudden it's in this like drab hotel. Who knows where the hell they're shooting? It's like a Dateline style. Like it's like to Catch a Predator. She meets him. What did you think he thought? Like, he probably thought she was just going to break up with him, right?
So when they did the 24 hours later and she's sitting in there and she's kind of sobbing, I was like, she was just like, I'm out. I didn't like this dude. He didn't feel good. I'm out of this thing. And I was going to be like, oh man, Daniel, like the short thing really, really happened. And then when she's talking, I'm like, oh, as she's talking and explaining this, it just doesn't feel like it just didn't feel like there was smoke to the fire. It didn't feel like this big thing that you could feel violated by this dude who, because she just kept saying the most basic, he knows I love taco, like I have Taco Bell on there, and he knows I love family and friends. Like it takes a 10-minute conversation with somebody to know, hey, you got a Taco Bell tattoo, you love your family. Like that's a generic thing. I felt like she was looking for an out.
See, I think this is why I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I simultaneously believe she was looking for an out, but I also really put myself in her shoes where, like, if I met a guy, and again, this would only be a thing if I wasn't attracted to him, and I had like a weird flashback, like, damn, he followed me, he unfollowed me, which is already kind of like sus behavior. And then I suddenly am like, wait, I actually think he might have figured out who I was and he was hiding this info from me. I would be really creeped out by it. I would. And it's tough, David, because I also don't blame him. Like, this is on the degree, the spectrum of like bad behavior in the Love is Blind universe. This is so innocuous.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have said something if he had a suspicion, but I don't blame him. But I also understand why she was a little weirded out.
Yeah, he probably should have said something, but also at the same time, like, you meet this woman, she's the love of your life, that you know, you think she's the love of your life. Like, does the experiment end? Is that the end of this thing? Like, maybe you want to tell her afterwards, hey, you know, because they like the producers may pull the plug on it. Like, you never know what happens. And so I just think, like, you know, it's a tough, because also, like, he follows her, unfollows her, they go into the pods. Like, I don't know how you, I don't think that because the way it was talking, it was as if he kind of went into the pods knowing who she was and maybe sought her out. I don't see how that's logistically that can happen. Yeah, it just didn't feel, it just didn't, it felt like something he probably should have said, and I could see how it's creepy, but I also could see a way where you could like work it out if there was like an attraction there.
100%. So I guess I come out of this not wanting to vilify either of them, but I'm also like, I do understand her perspective a little bit, especially like because we have seen people who aren't attracted to each other, to your point, like kind of work it out. We have seen, I actually think, again, in that meetup, you could see her trying to work through it. Like, he's kind of like the guys I date. And then this kind of realization memory clicking in could kind of like, you're sort of on the fence and you could go either way. And if it was me and I kind of had that epiphany, I would be like, nope, this creepy little dude is...
Well, because that's the thing, because that's also the thing, is that because you're unattracted to him, it lends himself to being creepy. Like, it lends him to be like you have this feeling of like, this dude is out, I'm out of this guy's league. And the only reason he could like that we could have had this thing is because he like did all this research on me.
It really is that classic meme, aw, you're sweet versus human resources.
Right.
For people who are not extremely online, there's this meme. And it is a perfect encapsulation of how this show, he might have gotten away with it if he had said so in the pods, David. Like, if she didn't know what he was looking like, although she did because of the, you know, she saw him, I guess, and decided not to follow him back. It's tough, man. It's I think that's over. Well, it's a cliffhanger. We talked about this before. Charlie and Brian were like, how are you guys going to keep watching? I was like, there's zero chance he bounces back from this, especially because of the way he reacted, which was guilty. Yes.
He did the like, I'm listening to you like thing where you like, he was like, interesting. Instagram, you say.
Oh, Lord. Okay, well, we'll get to will they do or they don't. It was tough. I was cringing all over. My body was just like, watching that interaction. It was tough. Let's do Devin, Brittany, and Virginia, because this is another one I've been dying to talk about with you, which is the dissolution of Devin and Brittany, who I had her at top, my power rankings. I was like, I love this woman. She's so fun. They have really good chemistry. They have so much in common. So he tells both of her and Virginia, which is fine, his story about getting addicted to painkillers, essentially, because of his basketball injury. And then how he prayed and God told him to go to a doctor, got surgery, all praise to God. Doctor's somewhere like, what?
Right.
I do nothing here. Okay, so
shout out to God for saying go to a doctor for a medical condition. That's
if anything, I thought because we get two versions of the stories, I thought the version with Brittany was more like engaged and her response. I was still like, these people are better. Then we get a little bit of a plot twist, which is she tells him that she has had some sexual experiences with women. I want to be very, this language matters a lot. But she does not want to marry a woman. She wants to marry a man. And he is taken aback. And then we show them again and it's just like over. And she's like, I can tell, like, you're a little too rigid for me. We're not each other's person. It's very amicable. So before we get to the Virginia side of it, I really want to get your thoughts on this interaction, his reaction, and then the immediate breakup after.
So I would be surprised if the breakup was immediate.
Okay.
Afterwards, I would lean into the belief that there was a conversation in between where he may have like represented himself not so well as they did towards the end, i.e. being a little bit more homophobic than you would kind of lean on. Because it was like, I mean, he was like the stuff he was saying was like straight up homophobic. Like I want to be, I don't know who you'd be attracted to, and well, like she could still be attracted if she were like only interested in men. She could still also be attracted to other men. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like this very like archaic homophobic reaction to a woman saying that she, has had experiences with other women. And this is a thing that like, his insecurity popped out. Some homophobia popped out, a little misogyny popped out, and it was really sucked because he told this sob story that was like really sad, and she cried with him about it, and she felt vulnerable to tell him her story, and he was like, I don't know about that. That's kind of like, I'm not sort of into it. And then they part, and then they come back, and then it's immediate like, hey, this isn't working. I feel like there were conversations in between.
I think you're right. This is tough for me because I think the way he reacted, I if I'm her, I feel terrible too.
Yeah.
Because he shared this really scary, vulnerable thing. He shared a very scary, vulnerable thing. She did, and the reactions were very disproportionate. And I think also it's clearly something she has not expressed in public a lot. And I think I don't know how she feels about that, but like that, I think that has to be really tough and really hurtful. And I felt for her. I also, though, think that while I am not sure his reaction was particularly driven by what I'm about to say, when she was talking about it, the way she was phrasing it would make me nervous if I was about to enter into a relationship or if I was a man or a woman, because so both these people are religious, right? This has been established. They are God-fearing folks. She almost sounded like she is still working through this. She was like, when she was like, I would never want to marry a woman, that set off some alarms for me, which is like, which isn't to say you're not actually bi, but you probably are, you probably will, whatever. But like, like, what is it though? Like, why are you almost, say like it feels like you haven't quite worked through what this sexual desire means for you. I don't know. Did you feel that way too when she was talking about it?
The way she spoke about it, of like, I've had these relationships, I've had these experiences. I definitely am not marrying a woman. Right. Feels like that comes from a place of like, and you've heard these things before. That comes from a place of not your actual feelings, but like maybe what you feel like you should be doing, stuff like that. But also, I think like he is a basketball player. And I think there's also bringing your own stereotypes about basketball players and female basketball players in particular, of this idea of like they're all queer.
Just
and
honest answers according to Dave Dennis Jr. episodes 1 through 3 recap.
Right. Exactly. Right.
So, no. I think so too. Yeah. But it's funny because he doesn't see what she was dressed quite femininely in the first few episodes. Like he has no idea what the personality on the wall works like. And I think to your point, she says that, and you're kind of putting together this puzzle based on the information you get. And I could totally imagine him being like, "Oh, this is this is a lesbian," which is not how she identifies herself. I guess I'm not trying to like. I think you're right, and I think his first reaction was just like, "Ooh, this sucks," and I felt terrible for her. Yeah. I guess I'm just saying, I also, the way she told that story, because imagine if she was just like, "Yeah, I hook up with like guys and girls. Not a big deal. I'm sexually attracted to both." I weirdly think that would have been less triggering maybe to him, or if it was me and I was a man, that would have been less like, "Ooh, what's going on here?" I don't know. I have some sympathy for that.
But I think even if he were just kind of like, "Yo, look, I don't know if I want to work through this with you."
Yeah.
Like that may have been better. He was just kind of like, I don't. And then the way she said rigid, like the way she said, like, you're too rigid, indicates to me that there was something that was like, there was something there. And she, I just, she threw in that power suit for the break.
I know. I'm sure that she came on the power suit. I was like, ooh.
I was like, I hope she didn't wear that to the reveal. Imagine like she pulls up in the suit for the reveal. You'd have been like, oh, never mind. But then also you contrast it to Virginia, who is like, quote unquote girly girl. She has a high pitch, voice. She's, like very much, I want to serve you and all that, like that sort of thing. That was it for him. He was like, that's it.
a shame to me because I just actually still believe he had better chemistry with Brittany. But
Absolutely.
again, like things will
Absolutely.
change. We'll see in real life, whatever. But like, damn, I loved watching them talk.
Yeah.
Whereas when him and Virginia talk, it's such a womp womp for me,
Yeah,
David. Like, do you
yeah.
enjoy any of those scenes between them?
No, because it's like they're one of those couples that like they speak in we've had this before. They speak in podcasts, right?
Yeah.
They speak in podcasts. They speak in platitudes. I'm not. They're like more about the representation of marriage and like what you think it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
which means that they could end up fine. Like it's just to me is boring to me, and there's nothing really that I found to be like really a connection. Like they didn't seem like they'll be as good of friends as him and
Yeah.
Brittany were, which is like when you guys are sitting down, what are y'all going to talk about? You know, because also like if this dude has any of these insecurities, you are going to be just as insecure about your wife making a boatload more money than you are and like having this job and being a mover and shaker, and you're kind of not.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we will see in the next few weeks, now that they're in person, if some of those insecurities on his side become a thing, especially when they go back. I think this could be an interesting when they go back to the real world.
Yeah,
Because I think for her, her kind of narrative is not narrative, just the story she told as a woman who's been kind of treated badly by men and is looking for a nice guy, right? Like that was her storyline. And she found him. She found the nice guy. Okay. But then what happens in real life? Because in the pods, that sounds great. And you're found someone different. And I truly believe like he is not a bad dude at all.
Right.
I just wonder, a lot of times when it's that storyline doesn't end well, when the woman, it's kind of the inverse of the Dave, or it's the same thing with Dave, where he's like, I'm looking for a nice girl. I go for looks. Oh, I skipped the proposal where I just wrote red velvet shirt, really. The meetup. What did you think of the meetup?
I thought it was fine. I thought he was actually like a little bit more muted about how gorgeous she was, and I thought he would be like,
he played it cool.
He played a little bit too cool.
Yeah.
Like he played a little bit too cool because I'm like, this is an obviously beautiful woman popping up, and like if you do an experiment like Love Is Blind and she shows up, you got to be like, I hit the damn jackpot, and he ain't act like that. And I was like, you're a little bit too cool for school, my guy. Like it's okay to grovel at this beautiful woman at the door. My question though for the couple, which I'm interested in, I wonder if Virginia knows why he broke up with Brittany. And if that was a conversation, because I'm like, I wonder how she would react to like that being the reason he broke up with her, or like even if she's like, yo, this dude may have some like homophobic tendencies or something like that. Like I wonder if it was ever related, because it doesn't seem to be, because to Devin's credit, he was protective of Brittany's secret, right? Didn't tell anybody, just said she revealed something that didn't feel right. But I wonder how Virginia would fit in, knowing that that's why they broke up.
The preview showed Brittany returning. So I think that could be an interesting storyline. I am curious also to just see with some distance how Brittany talks about the breakup with Devin and whether she feels like what too rigid means. God, you're so right about there being extra meetings, because that one felt like, you remember how last season we talked about how Tyler and Ashley had to like stage conversations, infamous couch conversations. That breakup was like, all right, cool, we got to do this now.
We got to do something that doesn't like, if we're gonna make Devin like anywhere likable, or like you can't have this dude being like asking like queer 101 questions to Brittany.
He might be the only hope. Well, Joey, we'll get to Joey. We don't even have to. There's no Joey in this episode.
There's no Joey. Yeah.
One more thought on Virginia. Yeah, just about the meetup. My first reaction was like, I don't know how she's feeling, but I also think that's kind of her personality. Her words were actually, I was listening carefully to things she said, and her words were actually pretty affirming when they talked. She just kept saying, like, I'm relaxed around you. I'm happy I came here. It was a big deal for you to get to know me first. She said, I knew he was cute by his voice. So like she did say, I know we see that she's not super effusive. She doesn't have a big personality. She's, still gorgeous. The reaction is like, this woman's not attracted to that man. I didn't really get a strong feeling one way or the other there.
And I honestly do not think attraction is a huge part for her. I just don't think it's a big deal for her, because I just think that she clearly probably has dated really hot dudes in her life, and they probably treated her bad. She's just like, I just want a good dude. And she was like, I could work with it. And she was like, I like your eyes. He was like, really? She was like, more the shape.
It's true. That one's going to be interesting. That one I feel like could go a lot of different directions. Yeah. Okay, Dave, Molly, and Lauren. Let's do this next before we wrap up with the square that imploded.
Dave,
this is the love triangle. You hate
Oh
Dave
my
so
God,
much.
I hate Dave. I actually kind of like. So this is a bigger picture about Minnesota Nice, right? I think we've talked about Minnesota Nice in the first episode, which I think got a lot of people's attention about that, including one of our possible accents on the show. And then there was a
You
lot of
betcha.
I think Minnesota Nice has taken on a personality of its own in the way that they do Minnesota Nice is they go in the pods and pretend that they don't know who anybody else is. And they just like say passive aggressive things in the pod about and to each other and be like, I don't know who could hear this. I don't know who the person is, but I'm going to say that my number one loves me more than everybody else in the world. And I don't know who else could be hearing this.
This season, I think more than any other, that's been like kind of a plot point. Like about like who knows what, I don't think I've ever heard number one, number two more than this part.
Yeah, because I feel like most of the time they like corroborate stories early and know who the number one or number two is. And this one they just like pretend like they don't know, even though I'm pretty sure everybody at some point
figured it out.
Like when when we'll get to the square later, but Alex like going over and being like, did your number one break up with you? Or what is
Alex, that's low-key, when I went back and reviewed the tape, some snake behavior on his part with regards to what you're describing.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big issue with Dave and Molly and Lauren because a matter of dispute is whether and when Molly knew that Lauren was Dave's other option, because Lauren definitely knows and is kind of obsessed with it, to be honest. Yes. But to her defense, obsessed with in part because Molly's coming back and being like, he said I was the number one. He said he's going to break up with her. But let's start there because, because there's some stuff. Dave and Molly talk about the rings and that's fine. And Molly tells the girls, her guy told her he's going to end it with the person. Yeah. And we see a conversation between Madison, who's very gossipy, by the way. Yeah. Telling Lauren she thinks she's getting played. Do you feel there was any manipulation by Molly in all of this? Do you think, because she pretends, or says rather, I don't want to lead the witness here, that she didn't know it was Lauren. So all these scenes of her like saying he likes me, he's picking me, whatever. Are you buying it?
No, I think she knew, because immediately after the breakup, she like goes to Lauren and apologizes, and I didn't know. I thought it was like, she's like, I thought it was somebody else. I thought it was the other person. She was like, oh, I did notice that you stepped away when I talked about it, or like she knew. You had to have known that was her. And also, like, I'm not sure Dave promised to break up with
I don't
Lauren.
think he did. So, okay, this is the other thing I want to talk about, because there's a conversation that's shown where Lauren tells Dave, Molly has said you're her number one. Molly has said I was going to end with you. And Dave, to his credit, this is not a man I like. Yeah, right. I don't think he's lying. Like, I don't think he actually said either of them. And maybe it was a case of being misinterpreted. I guess that's kind of what we're just, but I don't think this is like a, Matt in the last season or 2 seasons ago where he's like playing different women. I think she is misrepresenting what he said to her.
I think there's a middle ground. I definitely think, because he does say you were my number one. You're always my number one. I definitely think that he led to Molly. I do definitely believe that he led Molly to believe that was his number one. We can fact check. We can get our
I guess maybe I might have missed it.
Yeah, I feel like that at that point. I feel like he does say that. Now he does not say you are currently my number one.
Interesting. Okay.
There's like you were my number one from the beginning. I can see
that. Yeah.
Right. So but there's definitely no like I'm breaking up with Lauren when we come back. That was not said there. And again, I'm not going to defend Dave at all, because Lauren comes back and she's like, hey, what's going on? Dave was like, I didn't want to get caught up in girl drama. Oh, you are the drama.
The worst. like, I know. I'm not like, yes, I know. The second girl drama. Yeah. Do you think Lauren was too preoccupied with Molly?
I think a little. I think a little bit. But you know what? I kind of respect Lauren a little bit here. And that, she picked the wrong dude because Dave sucks. But like, she was like, we've seen a lot of people just kind of, and we'll talk about some people may have broken up preemptively or like didn't, she was like, I want this man and I'm going to like state my case for this dude and kind of fight for him. And the good thing about her is that like we see a lot of times is when somebody says that this person's their number one, it prompts them to like want that person more. Yeah. I think she was just all in on Dave from the beginning and was fighting for her man in a way that felt like, I just want this dude more than I don't think Molly liking him and him liking Molly impacted her want of Dave more than she just already wanted this dude, which again, a terrible choice, but that's what she wanted.
There was a little bit of telephone kind of going on here. Yeah. I don't come away from this thinking anyone was really trying. I think we agree Molly probably knew a little bit earlier than she let on, but I don't think, and their conversation after was fake as hell. But they're like, oh girl, I would never
Minnesota nice.
Yeah, right. But I don't think there's any villains in this triangle. I think it was just a case of two women wanting the same man and the man taking a second to decide. And then he does decide. He decides on Lauren. Before we get to that, his breakup with Molly, she was super matter of fact.
Yeah.
And which I think was interesting. I found it not surprising because this is a woman who's never had a significant other. I think she's been broken up with, or maybe situationships have ended quite a bit, and I kind of viewed it as I think she's tough, and I think she was just kind of being protective of herself there. I think he was taken aback though by the lack of emotion that she showed.
I think he expected her to freak out and storm out and say this is over, because she had to press him to be just say the thing. I think he wanted her to just do it, and this these episodes have really got me thinking about how we think about the relationships in the pod versus actual real relationships. I feel like giving a little bit more grace to people who are who flip flop. I think a little bit more, this is my number one. This in real life, it would feel incredibly to have to deal with that, especially if somebody to tell you that hey, I'm dating somebody else. I like them more, but we're going to see what's, that's not how real life happens. But in a pod,
totally
in this thing, Dave, I think was melting down in real time. And you have a self-centered dude. So these women are hey, what's going on? He's just this is real hard for me. I'm this is, my heart hurts and my testicle hurts. And I'm just having these issues. And I just think it's a thing of exclusive to the pod, where I think you just kind of give a little grace for people saying these things that are kind of hurtful and flip-flopping in a weird way.
We're going to get to that when we get to Mason, because I think he's kind of exhibit A for what you're describing and for grace not being given to him. His mind. But I'm with you. I guess it's so funny because I just don't like this man, but I didn't come out of this feeling like he handled it super poorly. I don't blame him. I don't think either of the women involved were villains or awful. I think I think Lauren, to kind of answer my own question about sort of whether she was too obsessed with Molly, I think being in there is a pressure cooker. And all you have to do all day is think about one guy, and you have competition, and she's loud about it. I get it. I get why she got kind of obsessed with her.
And she's a dancer and all that. And you're a teacher, you got all this stuff that kind of makes you feel, insecure. And she wanted her man. I kind of dig it.
I get it. Yeah. And she was really into him from the beginning. She never had another man or at least we were shown. And then ultimately, it was really interesting too, because you could see how much of it was affecting him, because when he finally did get, Lauren was just say it. And when he makes the decision, he's so relieved from that point on. When it shows after there's some conversation. I hate, by the way, the worst are after they decide, but before the proposal, it's come on, I don't need to see these conversations. This is boring. They're together. I get it.
But also him crying, his thing with his sister is what's going on? He was crying about his and all the he's in the pod crying about his sister, what's she gonna think, and all the dudes are
that was I don't understand that whole.
I don't know what's going on, because the previews we don't see her popping back up. I don't know what's
the sister.
The sister, we don't see.
They do show him freaking out about it though at one point.
Yeah, and they don't, which I feel he would tease if this is a big moment of the show. He's crying about her, and Devin's dude, just she'll be, it's fine, chill. It's a weird thing.
It is weird. One more note about Molly. This was I sort of let my people down by not mentioning this the first few episodes. The shoes on the freaking sofas.
Oh,
dude.
yeah. Yes.
It's not just her.
Yes.
A lot of them.
And I would like to mention that Devin's were not on the sofa. His feet were dangling off of it, which, take whatever commentary you want on that.
We got some cultural shared. This might be a little diagram of us together.
So wait, here's a final question. Here's another question. Sorry. Here's another question about Dave. I don't, as much as he's going back and forth in this, I'm not seeing any chemistry with either of these women, by the way.
Okay, so they meet up. Well, let's get there. So you didn't, when they met up, I didn't feel the chemistry in the meetup.
Yeah.
I didn't think like either of them were like super let down,
Yeah.
which was a worry I had with Dave, right?
Right.
Because this dude is very shallow. But I also didn't feel like these people are really drawn to each other.
I didn't feel like they were drawn to each other in the pod. Like they didn't really kind of like, he was like, oh, you made these jokes. And also here's my conspiracy theory about Dave. When he's talking to Lauren, he's like, I'm gonna read the first page of what I wrote about you that night. I don't think he was reading anything. I'm just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
Oh,
I think he was just saying on the top of his head something that made her feel extra special. I don't think he was reading a single damn thing on that piece of paper.
Dave wants to be deeper than he is, and wants to be seen as someone who is not who he has been. And I think that captures that. I think we were talking about like, Virginia wants a nice guy. It's not that Dave wants a nice girl, but he wants a girl that his mom would have liked, maybe that his sister will like, and he's not. This is sort of his story on the show. Yeah, how that unfolds. We'll get to will they or won't they. Their meetup they did have like a very intense makeout at the very end, but I didn't really get.
I think Dave wants to be on the show. Like I'm getting real big. Like Dave I want to be on the show vibes. I don't because like I don't feel anything in terms of like him, why he likes these women, why he fell in love, why I just feel like he was just trying. He's like can't decide because he doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and he like usually dates hot women. I just don't think. I don't feel Dave's like genuine love for either of these women. I just think he wants to be on the show and make it to the end.
Well, Ben and Sara, speaking of people who maybe want to be on the show, or at least one of them, there's really only one thing we got to talk about here, which is the conversation they have. It's interesting how it's edited because he's like, will you be my girlfriend? He accidentally says, I love you. Yeah. She's like, cool. So what do you think of George Floyd? So just to recap it accurately, I guess, so to give people context, she is like, I wasn't that political because he said he just doesn't care about politics. She says, but then Trump took office. George Floyd happened. He says,
in Minneapolis, people should,
Yes, very important. This is in Minneapolis. They live in Minneapolis. He's like, what, constantly like, I just don't know what to think about that. And to her credit, before she ultimately decides it doesn't matter, she's like, I don't want to teach you about this. I don't want to teach someone I'm with fundamental values. So then they walk back and he's like, I've got a girlfriend. Like none of it landed with him. And they show her talking to different people and being like, I don't know about this. Like this lack of like, there's might be a key difference here. They meet up again and he promises to her that he is going to learn, but she doesn't have to teach him. He's going to do it on his own. So this is really everything that is notable before the proposal. What did you make of this whole exchange?
We're gonna have to queue up the graphic of me doing the lean up, like the video game thing. Because when she said George Floyd, I was like, oh, where are we going here? Because we've talked about this before. Like we've talked about like sort of these third rail things that do not happen on dating shows. Like, and we've never really seen somebody be like, yo, these are your politics. I'm out. And I thought from that first conversation, I thought she was done. He was like, I got a girlfriend. And I thought she was like, I'm done with this thing. It's over. And we get into this like very stereotypical thing. There was a lot of talk about like in November about women who vote a certain way and hide it from your husband. And like, and this is, and it's like, how much of a, like, do you care about these values? You're willing to partner with somebody who does not give a about them at all, which clearly like he can say all the things he wants to in 2020, whatever, 2023, whenever they filmed this, to say, I don't know anything about Black Lives Matter or George Floyd that happened in Minneapolis. And like basically you're saying, I do not give a shit. And now you have two red flags. One being like, I would spend a lot of time with those people when you're talking about queer folks. And now you have a dude who does not care about Black Lives Matter or doesn't pay any attention to it. And like promising you that he's going to learn more about it and will probably agree. That's not how it works. Like you can't just be like, once I learn more about this topic, I'm sure we'll be on the same side of it. And her feeling like, cool, that's all I need to know. It was like really disappointing. Like whatever happens with Sara in this relationship, you're like, we saw it coming.
I think you just saw the limits of people will use the word performative. I think you saw the limits play out in real time in a way that we rarely see, which is
Right.
like, how much does this actually matter to you? How much are you living it? Okay, cool. We just saw, right?
Right.
With
Right.
her, because, imagine if she was not a white woman. Like, it's very,
Right.
it's almost impossible for me to imagine it playing out the same way, right? If this
Right.
was something that was truly affecting her personally.
Brittany ain't going out and leaving out the pod with that man if she says that. I'll tell you that.
I think what was also like, I do like to give grace for learning and the possibility of growth, but the way he communicated it was not believable to me.
Right.
He wasn't like asking her questions.
Yeah.
He
Right.
wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
guess that's the thing is like, I don't want to say like two people have to come in and immediately be on the same page politically, and he has to like know all this, I understand that, but I just don't think it was credible, frankly. And I think she's going to learn that very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't like, "Hey, why do you care about George Floyd? What interests you about Black Lives Matter? What is, what is it?" He just was like, "I'm going to read more," and like it was extremely because like she, like you said, this is the limits of like a certain type of feminist liberalism, pink hat thing that she's doing, where she's just like willing to like because the immediacy of her giddiness at like moving on to everything else.
Okay, we're ready to move on.
Yeah. It was like, okay, you did this thing. You were on camera saying you did this thing. Your sister's gonna like be proud of you for doing it, and people who watch are gonna be like rah rah. Because I was like, cool, Sara, like this is a rare thing that we see. Like she did it, I did it, I'm fine. Yeah. We'll never speak of it again.
I'm very curious to see if they do speak of it again. It might happen, by the way, and I would like to see that on camera. I think that could be really interesting. They do not speak of it when they meet up. I wrote, these are two people who are actually very physically attracted to each other. That was my takeaway. Like they both were like very happy with the result. Not much. Yeah,
it was a little bit of tongue in the kiss. They were kind of like getting hot and heavy. I was like, okay, go for it.
And that will probably affect whether or not she cared. Like, I'm saying. Before we move on finally to the love square, I did make a note here. My husband, who is a music writer, composer, keeps pointing out that they're using actual songs this season.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they did. Shout out to the Love Is Blind budget.
I just wanted to make that note because some people are very affected by that. Okay. Alex, Madison, Mason, Meg. I think it's very important that we discuss this chronologically. I actually went back, grinded the tape to make sure I wrote down these things in the order that they happened because it matters a lot, particularly for our guy Mason. So beginning of episode 4, they show the guys, they're talking about how many people they're down to. Alex says he's only down to 1. Mason says he's down to 2. Okay. We get a scene with Mason and Madison, who at this point is still talking to him. He basically is telling her in this scene, David, that he's in here with her and she's like, "You're being elusive." And he's like, no, it's you. And her reaction is not great. So she wants the affirmation from him, but she also obviously isn't favoring him, which is notable. At some point, she tells him that she loves cream pies.
Yes, immediately. The thing with her and Mason, I'm with you on this. Like I think she just wants him to like be madly in love with her.
100%. And 100%.
Just wants this dude to be chasing her around because the sexual stuff we talked about, the twerking last time. And I'm twerking. I'm wearing my short skirt.
My nipples are pierced. I'm wearing a split.
All this stuff. And then immediately from this one, she's rolling her eyes as he's saying he's into her. And then she goes, "I like cream pies. How about you?" And it's like, what are you doing here? And Alex doesn't seem to be getting the same type of energy, by the way, either. Like you're giving all this sexual energy to this dude who you seem to not be totally interested in, who also has, is it like, so the question is this just about Meg? Like we talked about, is this about her being like, I want to win over Meg? Is that what she is doing here? Because there's something weird that we mentioned last time about her and the sexual stuff with Mason.
It's very effortful. It's very pick me.
Yeah.
And it's very odd that it's coupled with what we see, which is she doesn't actually want him to pick her. Yeah. I find it extremely off-putting. She walks out of that and she tells, I think it was Sara, she's like, "Yeah, that was my number 2. He told me I'm his 1. I'm like,
right. Yeah.
That's not good.
Right.
You shouldn't want to get there. Okay. So that's notable. So then we see a day with her. And
while knowing who the other person is.
Yes.
And that she has him as her number 1 also.
Yes. So then we see a date with her and Alex. They're talking about their dream house. She's like, yeah, I wasn't into my date with the other guy. They agreed to be boyfriend and girlfriend. She reveals to him that the other guy is Mason.
Mm-hmm.
He probably already suspected, but it's confirmed. They go back. She's like, yeah, I'm going to break up with Mason. So Meg finds out in this moment that Madison's going to break up with Mason, who she knows is her guy. Mm-hmm. Alex comes back and he like, congrats, dude. And Alex knows this. And then they show Alex out talking to, I can't remember which of the guys, and he's like, yeah, it's Mason. Mason's about to get dumped by my girlfriend or whatever. Yeah. Then I think this is in the next episode, Mason's telling the guys like, all right, guys, I'm going to go for it. Yeah. And Alex is like, cool. What do you think of that? I just want to hit that. I don't want to let our guy Alex. Well, he's not my guy. We'll get to internet gossip, but I don't want to let him off the hook. I thought that was kind of foul.
It was, because also like Madison's like, it was Mason, and Alex is like, oh no, he's a cool guy. And then because I think there's also a little bit of like, Alex used to eat my lunches in the bathroom.
Oh,
you know, I'm winning over Mason, and I'm going to rub it in. And you're sitting there at the table, and there's only a couple of people left. You know what I'm saying? There's only a few couples left that, you know what I'm saying, that are that serious at this moment. And it's like those brain teasers, you know, where it's like, it's not you, and you pick the, so it's like
logic test. Yeah. Right, they have one person, they have one. Yeah.
It's like mastermind. Like we're such nerds. It's like I got one, you got two. What do we, like? He knows what's going on, and you're around, and he's asking these questions like, "How's it going? What do you think's going to happen? How do you think?" When you know the answer to it, it's kind of like a whack move by Alex.
I agree. Okay, so and I think what you said about Alex is something that we can talk about in internet gossip too. Mm-hmm. So Mason decides he's going to go for it. He meets up with Madison with one of the single worst decisions I've ever seen a man make on Love is Blind. They have breakfast.
Yeah.
But they don't only have breakfast, David. What does Mason do? I can't even say it.
Wait, what does he do?
He gets her a cream pie.
Oh, he does get her a cream pie.
So brutal. And he thinks it's going to be this like hilarious moment.
Oh, he does get her the cream pie. I forgot. You know, I have
brutal.
The sex stuff is so it's so like a turn off. It makes me not want to have sex. It's like
sexy. I think that's
that's it. It's anti-porn. Like that's what it is. It's like anti-porn. It's like these two people, and I was trying, and it makes me so wildly uncomfortable. Yes, he gives her a cream pie. That absolutely went blank in my head because I blocked this out.
So he starts launching into. He thinks this is going to be like his moment to shoot his shot. And
do you think the producers? Do you like that couldn't have been his own, just him?
That's a great point. Yeah.
Do you think they were like, it'd be great if you got her an extra cream pie?
I could see a producer doing that. Yeah. And then being like, don't tell her at the beginning. The breakfast looked delicious. So delicious that even after the breakup, they both walked out with their teeth, which honestly, the most I've ever related to people on Love is Blind. Like if I was
because they don't get fed.
If I had a huge pancake breakfast, I'm walking out with that bad boy too. Okay, but so she's like, I assume you. Sorry, I want to impersonate her. That's mean. She says she assumes he heard the news.
Yeah.
Which is already weirdo behavior. Yeah. And she says, you know, I was just able to get there faster with someone else. And then he is like, well, I feel like I put pressure on you and I committed to you. And you can see his brain calculating. He's basically trying to decide, should I try to save this or should I try to backtrack so I can make it work with Meg? You see this happening in real time. Yeah. And she is very aggressive with him and is like, you were probably saying the same stuff to both women. You were trying to keep two good things at once. You might have lost both. He, in her defense, then he starts trying to walk it back and she gets annoyed. And I would be annoyed with that too. Right, like a guy walking it back. But she is mean to him. Did you feel she was very mean to him in this breakup?
And also she says, me and Meg have had conversations about you and about this thing. And it's like, and I went back and I was like, did I miss something? Like maybe they did. And I don't know why they wouldn't show it if they hadn't had, but I was like, I don't recall, because she has a conversation with Meg afterwards.
Yeah. So this was part of the reason why I had to roll the tape too, David, because I was like, okay, when did did she interfere with the relationship? And
Yeah.
the only one where they like explicitly talk about him and his behavior is after.
Right.
It's not
Right.
before. So either we
Right.
weren't shown it,
Or she's lying.
well, and she freaks him out because
Yeah.
he walks out and he's like, my number 1 and 2 have been talking or whatever. And then she walks out and she's like, breakups taste good. He was a little bit of a, I'm sorry. I found her so unpleasant.
She was so, yeah.
like, vindictive. And like what the worst thing he did was changed his mind.
Right.
Okay.
Which is like, you know, which I'm not sure if he actually changed his mind as much as because or even like I just think that like because there was sort of a push and a pressure, like he was kind of pressured into Madison when he kind of realized that there was 2 and then that there was like a, you know, that he could lose her. And I always felt like he liked Meg more from the beginning. Like I just felt like there was more there. He said it. There was more there with Meg.
He got sex bombed by Madison.
Right. Right. And so like the cream pie sent him over the edge towards Madison, but I think he always liked Meg anyway. And yes, she broke up with him and he back and talked about Meg. But I'm not sure that was necessarily, again, in these pods, you have like not real relationship reactions. I'm not sure. I always felt like he liked Meg more anyway.
Look, I could see her saying like, hey, I don't want this guy to pretend like, because she goes back and she says, Meg, based on what he told me, I don't think you'll be impressed. He couldn't decide. I chose quicker than he did. Okay. So like in her mild defense, I don't think it's unreasonable for her to say, hey, this guy chose me to someone. It is relevant information for a woman to know if she's second choice. I think my quibble is more just the tone of it all, which was like weirdly mean, especially given that she had a bird in hand that she that ended up backfiring. But like,
and she was so like so aggressive physically with him from the beginning, and then like cold about this. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm sure this dude's mind is like, well, and then she went in and talked to Meg and kind of took Meg's agency away from the conversation.
Yes. It felt like she made the decision for her.
Yeah, she did. She said, hey, you're going to lose both of us. And Meg was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm cool with it. Like, she was like, wait, like, what are you doing? And that, I think, impacted Meg's decision when she went in there and talked to Mason.
So Mason and her meet up and he tries a Hail Mary, basically. He's like, you know, you were the only girl I wrote 10 for. You've always been my number 1. You know, and I thought Meg handled herself really well. She's like, look, I just can't get over being 2 for you. And she wasn't mean about it. She was really sweet, I thought, in the breakup. And I totally get it. And, you know, again, you could criticize him. I don't think he was lying. I think that just this goes back to our conversation earlier. It's a weird situation. You're trying to decide between people. You don't have a lot of information. And we have seen like Kwame and Chelsea is the famous example where you remember Kwame went for a different woman. He was turned down. Chelsea was his number 2. Chelsea, the woman I've compared to Meg, she took him back. They're happily married because the pods are weird. So why not give it a shot, you know?
The pods are weird, but also so many, like this is also how relationships happen. We just don't see it in pods. Like how many times have people in real life been like, I kind of like this girl and she dumped me or she would like somebody else. So I just started going on this date with the other person I kind of like. And we turned into a thing. Like this is a real life thing that works out in the long run for a lot of people too.
Charlie said that in a nod to their favorite movie, Madison incepted.
Also, Alex, when Mason comes back and he's like, it doesn't work, Alex gives him a full frontal hug and is like, oh, what happened? Yeah. What happened? Was something said? What's going on? Like he's being
fake.
a little
fake. Fake. Yeah. So I hope we see Mason and Meg meet up at some point because I kind of feel like there still might be something there if they gave it a shot. Personally,
I think they should have. I think this was I can't think of too many. We see it like sort of go the other way. This was probably one of the only times in Love Is Blind where I felt like they cut it off too soon. You know,
yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of cutting things off, let's end here with the final interaction between Alex and Madison. So we're thinking, okay, Mason and Meg are out of the picture. It's all fine and dandy. They exchange gifts. She gives him a rock. He gives her his grandmother's art book. Mm-hmm. She gives him a used paintbrush. Seems like this is careening towards the proposal.
Yeah.
And then he once again conveys that he is nervous about her commitment and avoidance.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, look, I wish Mason the best. And she goes, that makes one of us. And he doesn't back down. He's like, no, I do wish him the best. Mm-hmm. And she says, I mean, this is, she says, you're taking his side.
Right.
Just to sum it up. My husband walks up. Well, he goes, well, I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened. I only know what he told me. My husband looks up and goes, can't do that. Relationships 101.
All right.
And then she gets upset. He says he doesn't want a relationship where there's fighting. He says he thinks it's too big of a jump for them to get engaged. They break up. Wow.
Didn't see it coming.
Didn't see it coming at all. Yeah. I thought this one was booked over. See them in Honduras.
Yeah, I was like sleepwalking through this. It was like one of those things you kind of like, all right, get to it. Like you said, like get to the proposal, get to this thing. They're fighting. It looks like a red flag. I think he was just kind of like, yo, you were like really hung up on this dude in a weird way. Yes. I don't like it. You know?
I agree. I think he also didn't like the tone when she was like, that makes one. Like generally kind of got the vibe that he was like a little bit put off by things she said here and there.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because this is like the opposite of like, you know, when they meet up, they're not attractive. Like they hadn't met up at this point. But I think he was like, there are too many red flags here for me to ignore. And I have two opinions about this. One, he's clearly right.
Yeah, right. Yes. We said in the last episode, Madison like seems like a terror in a relationship situation.
Two, though, if I was a woman and a man reacted the way he did to a breakup, I would be mad too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he definitely did take his side.
Yeah, it was like when, you know, when your partner comes home from work.
Yeah.
And they're like, Tiffany in accounting, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, Tiffany has a point. Never do it. Never do it.
That's what my husband was. He was like, relationships 101. Right. Yeah, I think that in some ways he might have been like pushing back a little bit to test her one final time and see like, can you back down? And she didn't. And man, this did not work out for her either. I think both of these people wanted to be on TV, to be honest, especially after kind of learning a little bit more about them off the show.
But I do think Alex also kind of got what he wanted to have somebody pick him over Mason. And I think once he got that, it's like, now I got to like actually see if I like this person or not, because he got his win.
Yeah,
he got the win.
They both got what they wanted.
Yeah, they both got
picked over someone else.
Right.
And then at the end with each other, it was like, I am bummed because, as I said in the first few episodes, I've been dying for people who didn't pick each other to finally meet, and this didn't happen. And I do think this would have been. There's some in the previews they show Madison with pink hair, still angry at Mason.
Yes, still mad at him, and I think
for they were not good. Like, how are you mad about that?
They were not going to work out because this is what I realized: Alex's voice is like 3 octaves deeper than his appearance. And I think that has a lot to do with what's going on here.
You say you're having trouble matching the face with the
right.
voice?
Like that would absolutely, she was not going to be into that dude when she saw him. Sorry, Charlie. I know y'all look alike, but she was like,
they just didn't seem like each other's type.
They didn't seem like each other's type. Yeah, not at all. Like I think she wants like a really hot dude to beat up on. Like I think that's maybe what she could have gotten that with Mason probably.
Yeah. Well, this feels like a good point to do the internet research section or internet gossip. Okay, so if you don't want to know anything about these, this is not spoilers. If you don't want to know about, well, I guess kind of is for one of them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information now and allegations. This is internet gossip, by the way, on TikTok about Alex and Ben. This isn't actually a spoiler, so I'll just say it. Basically being bad dudes who treat women poorly. This kind of goes back to what we were saying about the Minnesota gossip internet dating scene. Like there are all these, I tried to watch a bunch of TikToks and I was having a hard time getting to the bottom of this. But a lot of them refer to like Minnesota Facebook groups where people talk about dating. And I'm like, I did not know this was a thing. Apparently it's a thing in Minnesota. Is there anything you'd like to add beyond that? Or I guess some specificity to some of the allegations?
Yeah, specific stuff like creepy to women.
young women
and stuff about Ben leaving his like a card in his YouTube channel with women, whatever. Just like not good dudes, and like how much they're into actually dating or actually being on the show, and just like it's a lot of digging. We don't have like the big reveal a la some dude with a Christmas photo with like 3 kids in his arm
no,
like
it's not
last
like
season.
that, yeah.
But there's like a lot of hearsay and something to definitely keep an eye on, especially because we're going to see more Ben going forward.
Yeah, Alex is the Alex one was, I think I saw some allegations about, you know, him around like younger girls and stuff, and like we'll see. I suspect these won't be the kind that rise to the attention of reunion mentions and receipts being pulled out, because there's just they're not like it's not like the Tyler Ashley thing. There's not like a specificity to it, but it's hard not to know that as we think about these guys as I power rank them. Anyways, that is out there. If you guys are watching, listening, and you're deeper on the internets than us, let us know in the comments if there's any videos we should watch. But we watched quite a few, and that's sort of a summary of them.
And you know, it's the internet saying it's Ben, but it could be Mason, because as our viewers have noticed and vindicated me, those 2 dudes look just alike. Thank you very much.
Or Mason. Okay. Will they say I do? We're now down to 4 couples. So this is a lot easier. Let's start with a couple that wasn't even on episodes 4 through 6 because they got engaged so quickly. Monica and Joey is boom. Yes from both of us.
We could also talk about what we saw in the like teaser for the rest of the previews, because like there was like he has his OCD. And then
it's exactly what you predicted. There's going to be some controversy that's not actually.
That's not a controversy, because they clearly clipped her response to it and like did the deep music, and she was like, so you know, it's like a brain thing, and he was like, boom, 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 and it's like, no, she's just genuinely asking a question about OCD, and then he takes his shirt off and he's like looks like Thor, so it's like they'll be fine.
Oh, they were like, he's dated blonde women in the past.
Right.
Whoa. All right. Somebody by the way, speaking of internet gossip, somebody in one of my mentions said they knew Joey in real life, and that quote, your golden retriever comp was spot on. So that's the worst tea out there on Joey.
Yes.
One scene he is shown in the background picking his teeth.
Right. I did. They were having a conversation. He was just like plucking the teeth out. Good hygiene.
Okay. Let's do Dave and Lauren.
Okay. Dave and Lauren. All right. Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's a no. That's a no.
The first when they were like, because you know the trailers, the teasers kind of have like a similar. That's all good stuff, and then like one thing happens, and then you see all the bad stuff that's going to happen throughout the season. I knew that the Dave Lauren thing was going to be the pivot to the bad, which exactly is what it was, because he's judging her about her hair and all that stuff. There's still villainy left in Dave.
The hair, you're right. He's talking about her hair. Oh boy. Okay, Ben and Sara. This one is interesting.
Yeah, it is. I'm going yes.
Ooh, split decision.
I'm going yes, because I have lost all faith in Sara to like make.
So I'm going no, not because I think it's for principled reasons necessarily, but the internet gossip stuff, not that this is a spoiler, because this isn't a spoiler, makes me think skeletons are going to come out with this.
Okay, yeah. Well, the thing is, the question is, when do they come out though? Are they going to come out post wedding or whatever? But I just feel like I don't see anything, like she has planted her flag with this dude, and I think she's going to be fine with it. Plus, she thinks she's hot. She thinks she's really hot.
They're really attracted to each other, and that's going to actually really, I think, affect both their decisions. Okay, Devin and Virginia. Curious to see.
Ooh, yeah.
Both yes.
Yeah, it's gonna. We're not gonna like it, but it's gonna be.
I like them both. I do.
I do. I think they're gonna be like perfectly harmless, but like wildly annoying couples that like neither of our bag or our hang or anything like that, but it's going to be like, they're going to be fine. It'll be an intro. There's a Married at First Sight this past season where like the dude, like, you know, they go into each other's homes, right?
Yeah.
And the dude makes significantly less than this woman does. And he like has a total meltdown in her house about how much bigger her house is. And he basically talked himself almost out of that marriage. And I feel like that's the vibe I'm getting from Devin and Virginia.
She's going to see all those sneakers, though, and realize that they're an investment, David. Right. Okay, power ranking. So I'm not doing Mason. There's too many freaking people. I'm only doing
Okay.
the 8 who remain.
Okay.
Start with the very obvious Monica and Joey, 1 and 2. You
Yeah.
can put them in either order.
Yes.
Very little to discuss off of these shows. These episodes
Benefited from not being in the from resting their starters in the bye week, I think.
Yeah, they are the 1 seed with a bullet.
Yeah.
If anything happens there, my faith will be shaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, then we do Virginia, Devin. Again, either order would work here. You probably put Devin top or above her because he won the Love Is Blind lottery. Based on...
He did. I would put, I still am taken aback by like his initial reaction to Brittany and stuff. So I will.
Okay.
I'm not fine moving him a little bit lower. Also, Virginia's just adorable. Even though I feel like the Love Is Blind, was that a super spreader event? Because like you had somebody lost their voice, and Virginia's like nose is perpetually red. Like, are they all just sick in the pod?
Look sick. How do you do her voice? I struggle with people who talk really slow. That would be really hard for me. I'm sorry, she talks so slow. She'd be like, "Yeah, I just looking for a nice man." It's just slow.
She's
like, get to it.
She's some sort of doctor, right? I don't know.
She's
like
smart. It's not. It's just
well, I'm just saying. Like, imagine she's like giving you your diagnosis, and you're just like, "What do I have?" Tell me what's going on.
Come on, yeah, right. Remember, not a doctor, doctorate.
Doctorate, right?
Okay. So we're down. The bottom 4 is a lot harder. So the top 4. This is a very clear 2-tier season we've got with the 4 likable people, and then the 4 more convoluted. So I'm going to put Lauren at 5 of the remainder.
Okay.
Lauren, Dave, Sara, Ben. Lauren's a little divisive, by the way. I have seen some backlash to her on the internet. I think people thought she was too obsessed with Molly, maybe a little catty. I found it to all be within the bounds of reason. And I don't know. I feel like, we're also like, this is a power ranking situation. It's just hard to put any of the other 3 above her.
Yeah, I think her and Molly were equally aggressive towards each other. She was just like more honest with herself about what was going on.
Molly, by the way, did a weird photo shoot with Madison. It was the like, we've been eliminated from the show, so let's look hot reality. This is like a genre of reality thing. It's bizarre. They're like in lingerie. I don't know. You guys go look it up. Okay, Sara 6 for me. Again, this is just gonna put her above Dave and Lauren. So this might be controversial to you, and maybe this is affected by the internet research.
Yeah,
I'm putting Dave above Ben.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it because, like, I mean, they were both terrible. Also,
I forgot Daniel and Taylor.
Do we do Daniel and Taylor? Because we do not know. We do not know. We do not know.
Okay, all right.
Because I'm with you. I'm assuming that they're not going to make it. However, I think we're going to see them. I think they're going to try this thing out. I think they're going to work it out. They're going to I think they're going to try to like
Daniel and Taylor. Really?
I think Daniel and Taylor are going to try to like
stay on the show.
Stay on the show.
Okay.
Because what his thing doesn't rise to the level of like she's totally freaked out by it. But I think if she does not like him, she'll like let it linger and let that be the reason.
I'll put them below Lauren and above Sara then.
In
the lower tier.
Yeah. So the question is, why would you put Taylor might be above Lauren? Because if we're just going like she was pretty harmless. Like she was pretty harmless.
She is harmless. I just
didn't
feel like
have anything.
Yeah. An L for her.
Taking an L.
All right. Final thing I wanted to ask you before we move on to finally the tropical location yet to be discussed. How did you feel about the fact that it took so long to get there? Because a lot of people have been very upset about 6-pod episodes. Yeah. Clearly, they did the 6-pod episodes because the Love Square didn't make it, and they wanted to get a lot of that. Speaking of Madison, Meg, Molly, and Alex, what did you think of it?
It was a little long. It was kind of it dragged a little bit. Like I don't know if we need 6, but to me it just lends itself to the idea that like these actual couples. I think we're going to see more weddings than I still believe that we'll see more weddings than we've had in the past. And there's like I think there's going to be a little bit less drama going forward for a lot of these couples than we've seen before. Which is why you would dedicate so many episodes to four people who are not going to make it in the show. Like, it does not bode well for the rest of these episodes that we gave a lot of it to people, because they don't even have exes that are going to be that are there to like make things interesting, make things spicy. They're just like cut off, and we're going to see them in the reunion, and we're going to find out. Are we sure that Meg and Mason, because they kind of tease a little bit like that they may be actually dating?
I would really love that.
Yeah,
I would like a lot of screen time for that if it happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't. So in UK, they had to. We saw this also in Love Is Blind a couple seasons ago, where one couple doesn't make it like very early on, and then they go back to somebody they like in the pod, and they then become a couple. They did in UK, and they did it with the weirdo from a couple years ago,
Jack and
and so they did that. So I would have loved to see that happen.
Same.
But I don't think it's going to happen with Mason and Meg, but it would have been cool to see, because I still believe in them. I think that they should have given it a shot.
I do too. I hope that the meetup episode is always my favorite after the pods. So I hope we get, unless crazy stuff happens, I hope we get a lot of time for the meetup episode, because I want to see Brittany. I want to see Madison and Mason and Alex. I want to see all of it. So I am, and Molly too. They showed Molly and Dave talking.
They showed Molly. I know the producers were pissed when these couples didn't make it, because they like lost so many of the more compelling people got cut off. It's like it's like in the SEC like plays each other out. They all like have 2 losses because they kept playing each other, and now they're not in the final 4.
Yeah, I know. I feel
Madison was Alabama.
I was just about. Yeah, I was like. I know. I feel like Taylor and Daniel, if they persist, would be like the Sunday afternoon Texans Chargers, right? AFC South playoff game.
It's the NBA TV series.
All right, well, that's it for episodes 4 through 6. So episodes 7 through 9, we're gonna get on a more kind of regular schedule. So our podcast episode is gonna come out when those come out on Friday. Hit your ears. If you are listening to this, please rate, review, and tell your friends. We are also, of course, on YouTube. Watch it on both platforms, like on both platforms. This has been Love is Kimes with David Dennis Jr. We'll be back to see if Daniel survives. There's no way.